Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Elements of Success. I am Safriana Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide, a licensed clinical professional counselor, transformational mentor, speaker, and author. And as always, I just love being here with you all to be in my teacher self and to be able to offer you some of the gems I have learned along my journey in my time as a spiritual being, as a teacher, as a therapist, and as a spiritual practitioner. So today we are getting into a topic I think is so important, which is moving beyond the individual self. And again, in case you don't know me, I'm Safriana Luna. I have been teaching and hosting rituals and doing all kinds of stuff for nearly 20 years now. And it is a delight to have been invited by Amy and Nancy Harrington of the Passionistas Project to kick off this series. So thank you again. And before we dive into today's topic, I just want to recap from last time and check in with you about what we explored, which was really your emotional patterns, the way that you associate with your emotions. And I'm curious, did you track any of your emotional patterns? Were you able to practice responding to your emotions rather than resisting them? What body signals do you notice with different emotions? Just kind of taking stock of where you are at in your emotional awareness and your relationship with your emotions, because it can certainly be very challenging to be in relationship with our emotions, especially the ones that we feel are more challenging. And they're essential to us moving through life and being ourselves, right? They give us important information. So we want to have a really beautiful and flowing relationship with them. And that is why we wrapped up the water arc, exploring those emotions, exploring the way that they flow through us and the stories attached to them, and literally everything that our emotions bring up. Now we are moving on to Aether. And the Aether element is sort of a lesser explored element in terms of the sort of classical magical elements. Everybody knows earth, air, fire, water. But Aether is considered a fifth element. And there was even writing from Greek philosophers back in the day about the meaning of Aether. But the way that I see it is it's the element of connection, community, and our place in the whole, which is why I've associated Aether with the ownership arc of the season's framework. So, welcome to the Aether arc. Today, we're shifting out of the I feel and exploring our emotions into a sense of we belong. And again, Aether represents community and connection to me, our interdependence with all beings across the world and the universe. And it is the space that holds everything together. It is our collective consciousness and our sense of collective responsibility. So, in the next 4 episodes, we're going to explore ownership, not just owning your impact, but understanding that you are part of something larger than yourself. Because I think that we have just been given so much individualism that this is a big thing many of us are uncoupling from. So again, what's Aether? It's the fifth element in the sort of classical magical elements. It's the space, the connection, and the web that holds all other elements together. Earth grounds us, air moves through us, fire transforms us, water flows within us, and Aether connects us to everything else. When we talk about the bodies, right? Earth, I've described as our physical body, air, our mental body, fire, our spiritual body, and water, our emotional body. Aether is the connection points between all of our bodies, as well as our bodies to every other body. Everybody, right? Like all other humans, animals, the planet, the cosmos, etc. It also represents divine consciousness, the cosmos, and the field of connection between all things. So it even has this vibrational quality. And Justin showed off this supercluster here, which I feel like is such a beautiful depiction of the interconnectedness of all things when you zoom out and you see how they relate together. That to me is Aether. So we're going to get into the myth of the self-made individual, because that is where we really find so much pain and suffering in our modern era here today. because we're told this story and we are sold that this is the one way of being. And I know we've talked about this in this series before, but it's so essential to this mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be self-made. You don't need anybody, just need yourself. This rugged individualism is so harmful, and yet it is so pervasive. In truth, no one succeeds alone. If you were completely alone in your life, you would never have gotten to where you are today. That's, that is just a fact. No one succeeds in any way alone, completely isolated from other beings. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, right? We are building upon history, and we couldn't have gotten here without all of those other beings that got us to this point. Our infrastructure, education, and opportunities exist because of our collective work. Now, we could build it better. That's part of what I want to get into, right? We can build our infrastructure, our education, and our opportunities better. But they are what they are today because of how the collective of humans have come together to build things and what exists in different power structures and who has been in control at various points in time. And the more that we collectively come together and unhook from this individualism, the better these systems will be for all. But even our thoughts and ideas come from exposure to others. As a novelist, I am constantly inspired by movies that I see or snippets of things I've been reading or games I've been playing. There is just inspiration that comes from being in connection with other people that we can't get completely isolated from the world. And again, even if you were alone with no humans, you're still not alone. You are still surrounded by nature and the planet. So there really just is no truth based in actual individualism other than our own experience within ourselves is our individual experience. But that really ends as soon as we come up and out into the world in any way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, the self made myth continues to keep people isolated, competitive, and in many cases, small because they feel like they have to do it on their own. They can't ask for help. We're not separate. We are not separate. Indigenous wisdom keepers have taught this for millennia, and I could go on a ramble about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how it was stolen from indigenous wisdom keepers and flipped upside down. Literally, go look it up. Many non-Western cultures center not center on community over individualism. There's more generational interdependence. There's more communal interdependence. There is more of a sense of community and knowing your neighbors in many non-Western cultures. But that is because there is a cultural understanding that has been passed down that the collective is stronger than the sum of its parts. Imagine if all of us were raised in that, right? Western culture's hyper individualism is more of an outlier. It's not the norm, and it stems from so much of the patriarchy, capitalism, imperialism, etc., that Western culture has perpetuated. But again, the truth, we are not separate from the earth. We are literally born of her and fed by her. So without earth, we would not exist. We are not separate from each other. What I do out in the world has an impact on other people. What you do out in the world has an impact on other people. We cannot fully separate ourselves from others. And our actions ripple through our community and our ecosystem, depending on what those choices are. It's so essential that we understand what we do to the web, we do to ourselves. And we're going to deep dive into that today. So, moving back from this individual self-reliance into collective consciousness, that is so much of what I am here personally to invite us to do. So, individual consciousness asks things like, what do I want? How does this benefit me? What is in it for me? Those are good questions to ask. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in perspective of bio numbers too in a moment. But collective consciousness asks, how does this serve the whole? How does this impact others? Who is impacted by my choices? And what world am I creating with my actions? So both of these matter, but most of us were really trained only in the first, to look out for ourselves, to be the individual, unless, of course, it is self sacrificing. If you have been taught martyrdom, if you're an eldest daughter or a daughter in a family system that has had to take care of your family, if you've been a caregiver, right? All of this can impact that individual consciousness and cause us to literally sacrifice or martyr our individualism. But that's still not collective consciousness either, because we are part of the collective. So whenever we're self-sacrificing, we're not treating ourselves as part of the collective, and we're having a negative impact on ourselves, which in turn truly does have a negative impact on others. My famous phrase, compassion does not equal enabling. If I allow someone to harm me, it is neither compassionate for them or me. So again, both perspectives of the individual and the collective matter. And in the bio number system, which I have very, very briefly described before, which is the reality, excuse me, that there are 9 different physiological types of humans, and each has a different center of leadership in their body. Bio number 7 actually biologically has the set that they check in themselves that is both individual and collective. They ask themselves things like, does this matter? Am I doing my best? Is this important to do? Is it good for everyone? And so there is this element of like me in the equation and everyone else in the equation that bio number 7 quite uniquely possesses. A lot of other numbers don't see things the same way. They might be more individual consciousness based or more collective consciousness based, but this including ourselves is something that I would argue a majority of people struggle with. So it's either that hyper individualism or completely shutting ourselves out. And neither of those are really healthy. So, how can we invite this both? Me as an individual and me as my place in the collective. When we do this, when we start to realize our impact, it has this ripple effect. Everything we do, every choice we make ends up having ripples. The only thing that might not is like, what do I choose to eat for me for dinner tonight, right? If you're cooking for others, it impacts them. But if it's just what you eat, it doesn't impact someone immediately. But let's say that you continued to eat really poorly and you're eating things that are making your body attack itself and causing inflammatory responses. And you get sicker and sicker and sicker because you are continuing to make a choice that's not healthy for you. Eventually, that is going to have an impact on other people. So everything you do creates ripples. And this is such a big topic. And I know I wrote this in a future slide, but I want to just affirm there's no guilt in this that I am trying to apply. There is no shame I am trying to apply. Ownership, which is what Aether is tied with in this series, ownership is where we take our lives back, where we have control of ourselves in a way that feels really good and sometimes really yucky, because taking ownership can mean owning up to the fact that we're doing something that is having a negative impact. But then we have the control to change it. So I just really want to encourage you that our impact matters and our ownership is so important, because everything we do creates ripples. So the products that you buy impact workers, communities, and ecosystems. The words that you speak affect those who hear them. The energy, your energy when you enter a room influences the spaces and the people that you enter with. And your healing or lack thereof affects your relationships. So your level of ownership of yourself and how you're impacting yourself and others affects your relationships on every level. And your presence or your absence matters to your community. So how you are able to show up has an impact. You are living your life, but you are not just living your life. You are co creating a collective reality. You are part of a collective whole. And so, can you do your part? Not everybody's part, not self sacrificing, not martyrdom, not codependency, but can you really do what matters for you, your impact you can have in your community? That's what you get to co create. So let's talk about what we consume because I just mentioned you have an impact on the ecosystem and communities and workers depending on what you buy. And right now we are in a really challenging time collectively, and many of us don't have the financial abundance and resources to make maybe some more intentional choices in some ways because, for example, buying organic can be extremely expensive compared to buying non organic. Buying whole foods from local markets can be more expensive than buying prepackaged things at a big box store. And so some of us don't have, we literally currently do not have the ability to pivot in certain places of impact or make different choices. And still the question is, where can we? So there are places you can, and maybe there are places you can't, but where can you pivot to have a slightly more positive impact on yourself first and on others in the collective? So some things to consider. Where does your food come from? Who grew it? And under what conditions? I'm very lucky in that I get to grow a lot of my own produce, but I also try as much as possible to go to farm stands around the area and pick up fresh vegetables from places where I know they've been locally grown. When I do buy eggs, I either get them from a friend who has chickens and that I have seen and met the chickens and I know that they are well, or from a local, like small shop, small farm store. That's what I get to do. I have the privilege of having a kitchen where I can cook my own food. So again, some people might not even have a kitchen where they can cook their own food, or they don't have the means to serve, fresh produce and prepare fresh produce and things like that. Or they might not have a vehicle. So food is one aspect where we can have an impact. Another thing is what clothes that we get. Who made your clothes? Were they paid fairly? Was it fast fashion? What kinds of chemicals were used? Fast fashion is definitely a major impact on our planet and our collective. And the more that we thrift, the more that we do clothing swaps, the more that we get clothing from brands that are not using forever chemicals, that are not using plastics to create clothes. Again, this has an impact on us as well as the planet. I know half of my wardrobe is probably plastic. Probably half or more of yours is too. That's the reality that we live in. And many of us, again, if we have the opportunity, can either thrift better clothes for ourselves or, new clothes for ourselves, or when we choose to buy and invest, we can purchase more natural materials. Cotton, linen, wool, things of that nature. Again, where can we source it in ways that are really healthy for all that are involved? What companies are you supporting with your dollars? Okay. So I'm gonna take ownership, right? And give a very real example here. Right now, I have an Amazon Prime membership. The reason I have my Amazon Prime membership is what? What were we? I'm even trying to remember why we got it for a month. It was something we needed for our house. We couldn't get it anywhere locally. We're trying to sell our house and we needed this thing to bring something up to code. Could not find it locally, could not, and we needed to have it done in like a week and back on the market. So we got a Prime subscription because otherwise this thing was not going to be here for almost a month. And we were able to get it within the week. And there's a TV series that just launched that we are wanting to watch. So we're like, okay, we're going to intentionally get an Amazon subscription for 1 to 2 months max. We'll watch our show. We'll get this one thing that we need and we're going to cancel it, right? But I really don't like supporting Amazon. My books are on Amazon and I really don't like supporting Amazon. So this is where like you get to do this own game and kind of balancing acting yourself of like, does this align with my values? Shopping on Amazon every week and using the Prime benefits and having all of the delivery drivers have to deliver me things really quickly. Normally, not my thing. Again, needed this thing for my house. But otherwise, I like to shop local. I like to shop small as much as humanly possible or not shop at all because our money and our dollars are a huge way that we co create the world that we want. So, finding this balance, where can you have better impact, less impact, more impact, etc. One of the things is who you support with your dollars. So having these conversations with yourself, right? Take ownership. Like, do I need to offer this company money? Do I need this service? Is this something that I want right now? Can I reduce this over time? Right? There's no like, don't cancel all your stuff and run into the woods and hide. Like, these are intentional choices we make over time and we grow into them. How much do you consume and what becomes waste? I have big feelings about food waste as somebody who grew up in poverty and had to skip meals. So, it really bothers me when we end up with food that goes into a bin. So, we really try not to do that. We try to freeze um, overflow and things like that. But other things, how much do you buy plastic? How often are you buying things because they light you up in the moment and then they sit in a box or in a shelf or in the basement? How much do you consume and what becomes waste? How can you reduce how much waste you put out into the world? I think that that's a big, 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 big thing we can do. But again, rather than guilt, I invite awareness about what you're doing, what your impact is. And so you can take responsibility as you move forward on, oh, I don't want to, that's not in alignment with me. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to move into doing this instead. I'm going to make these swaps. I'm going to do these simple, sustainable things. And just remember that every purchase you make is a vote for the world that you want to create. It is. So where do you want to put your money? Because, again, many of us don't have a ton of it to go around right now. And we want to be wise about the world that we co create with what we have. And then, there's what we consume and then there's what we create. You are always creating, whether you realize it or not. Whether you consider yourself a creator or creative, doesn't matter. You bring an energy to interactions. And so you co create an energy. You create ideas and inspiration through the things that you share with others. You may create art or work or service, something that you offer to others. You may create relationships and you may build them or neglect them. And you create spaces that you feel either safer in or that are more harmful to you, right? So, what are you creating? And how do you want to create? How do you want to bring more intentionality into the energy of creation? Because again, what you create ripples outward. What are you contributing to the collective? And that's the big question here is what are we contributing, right? Because certainly we gain something, but also we are offering something simply by being here in this life. So, collective responsibility and stewardship, this is ownership on a larger level, owning not in like possessing, but owning in admitting to seeing the responsibility, seeing the impact, understanding the interrelationship between us and others or us and the planet. Stewardship is about tending something that is not solely ours. Usually, I'm sure we could be the steward of something that was truly ours. I could be the steward of my book, but even that like is not alone. It's not solely mine. So, if you know something that can be solely yours, tell me. I'm really curious. Other than again our inside reality. So, we are stewards of the earth and her resources. We are stewards of our communities and our relationships, of the knowledge and wisdom that is passed to us, and the future for those who come after. So, I invite the question, am I leaving this better than I found it? Whether that is a house that you've lived in, land that you have tended, a community you're leaving behind, a project that you might have jumped in on. Are you leaving something better than when you found it? I think that even walking around the park, this is a huge thing. Hikers, I hear this talked about all the time, like people leaving stuff in the forest, like little shrines or plastic bits and bobs to decorate and make it look like a fairy forest. That is not leaving the forest better than you found it. That is adding clutter and junk, right? If you want to do that in your own yard to make yourself something special that you go connect to, cool. But out in the forest, that is not going to contribute pleasantly to the wildlife. So Are you leaving something better than you found it, right? Not having to leave a mark in a territorial way, but in this collective, this might be quote unquote mine right now, or I might be the steward of this, but what about the future? What about the people in the future? And this is where we get into the interdependence, right? Like we want things to be better for all. We want things to be better for all of us. And we have been taught this lesson in Western culture that independence equals strength and that needing others makes us weak. And this is very much that unfortunate patriarchal, imperialistic, colonial, capitalistic mentality. Needing others is where we find interdependence. And in my eyes, that's real strength, right? I know recently there was a situation where a community member had a medical emergency and needed to raise money. She did not have the money to cover this. And it was only because she had community that she was able to get the money that she needed to handle this medical emergency. That's strength, right? If she had been completely independent and had no one to rely on, she would not have been able to tend to that situation because she would not have had the resources despite all of the work that she does in her community and what she provides. So interdependence is how ecosystems thrive. And, as a as a gardener, as a homesteader, I can tell you that is true. Everything has a relationship with a beneficial insect and a not so beneficial insect. Yet there is this interdependence that keeps the food chain going and the circle of life continuing, right? That's how the planet continues to be here, is through the interdependence of the ecosystem. For us humans, mutual support creates resilience when we know that we have others to support us, that we know we can lean in and really rely on others in our times of need. When we know we can ask for help, that creates more capacity. We know we don't have to hold it all alone. And so our window of tolerance, our ability to hold more, grows. And I know it can feel so scary to ask for help because it is rejected sometimes, right? Sometimes we do ask for help and we get a big old no. But most of us struggle to ask for help because of these stories we've been told, because of the societal narratives, not because we don't actually want help. I think deep down, we all want to be interconnected. We all want to be assisted and assist others in their endeavors. And again, giving and receiving are both necessary. We automatically end up giving and receiving by being alive, but we want to find that harmony within it, this real interdependence and sense of ownership of our individual self, not fully reliant on others, but also not fully reliant on ourselves, right? This balance. You were never meant to do this all alone. And isolation keeps us small. I mentioned this earlier. Like, oh man, how many people are so deeply isolated, feeling so alone, so desperate and desolate because of the stories that have been told. So when we are isolated, we believe our problems are only ours. That we are alone in our reality and what we're going through. And so often that leads us to believe that our struggles mean something is wrong with us, that we are doing something bad or wrong. And that's why we're struggling. That's why this terrible thing happened. And in reality, terrible things happen to so many people. And it's the universality, the coming together and understanding that we're not alone in the experience that causes the healing. If we're isolated, we don't have that mirror for our blind spots. We don't have that universality and that understanding that we are in this together. And then we have no support when things get hard. We miss opportunities for collaboration and joy. And isolation, of course, is how oppressive systems maintain control. Building community and really deeply connecting is a form of resistance. Now, before I move on from this, I just really want to speak to isolation because some people end up isolating themselves out of that rugged individualism. Some people end up isolating themselves because they don't have control over the outside world, and that is scary to them. Some people end up isolated because they're not taking ownership. And so I just want to say that here, like, if we feel like we're being constantly rejected socially, what is our role in that, right? Like, if we find ourselves rejected over and over and over and over and over again, and we're putting ourselves out there, we're trying to make connections, we're trying to not isolate, but we're still experiencing rejection, what can we own that we're bringing to the table that might be impacting our ability to actually connect? um, Even, as a survivor of domestic violence, I very strongly understand and take ownership for my own role in choosing to stay involved in those situations when there were logical outs, right? And so I say that because when we're moving from victimhood into survivorhood too, that is this important bridge of ownership where it's like, I didn't ask for those things. And here's where I am now. And like, what parts of this am I taking? What parts am I leaving behind? What is actually mine? And that's a part of healing that we don't really want to look at because it's not comfortable, but I think it's really important. So, who supports you? I invite you to really take a moment here to consider who helps you survive, who helps you, if anyone, right? You might not have help with all of this, but there might also be like with shelter, right? If you own your house, sure, it's yours now, but who helped you buy that house? Did you have an agent that helped you look? Did you have family that helped you with a down payment? Did you have employment that helped you get the money to get that shelter, right? There is no isolation. That doesn't happen. You don't just find shelter just cuz you want it, right? It is this co-creation in reality of your income, your human resources, what's available, who can help, all of that. So considering who helps you survive, and that's things like your shelter, food, income, safety. Who helps you grow? Who are the teachers, mentors, friends, loved ones that help you grow into your best version of you? Who encourages you? Who cheers you on? And who holds space for you? Who are the people you can be real with? You can show up as yourself. You can share your truth and not be isolated, not feel like you have to do it all alone. Who are those people that make that space for you? And then who inspires you? And these might be people that are directly in your life, or they might be people that you watch on YouTube or that you tune into their workshop once in a while, but you don't have a personal relationship with. Whose work lights you up? Who inspires you? And I just want you to imagine this web of support, this spider web, and we'll talk a little bit more about this too, but you are held by this web of support, and some are visible and some supports are invisible. I truly believe, and take this or leave this as you want, but I truly believe that we do have unseen helpers, whether that's a higher power or guardian angels or guides or ancestors, whatever that might be. I believe that those supports exist for us too. So, can you lean into those supports as well? And who do you support? Consider the reverse, right? Who depends on you? Who do you show up for? Whose life is better because you are in it? And how do you contribute to your community? You are part of someone else's web too. So, this is where, when it comes to taking ownership, I have seen like, there is not one person that comes to mind with this. I have talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of people at this point in my life, in both a professional and personal capacity, like more than a casual conversation. I've met lots of people on dating apps. I've met people on social sites. I've had a lot of conversations. And in ownership, one of the things that I find ends up leading to isolation or feeling dreadfully alone are people that feel like they how do I put this? They come into relationships and they express, I don't have any friends. I don't know what's happening. Conversations start and then they just never seem to go anywhere. And I'll start talking to those people and they don't ask any questions about me or other people, for example. They're in that like, well, I need something from the relationship, but they don't know what to give in the relationship or they don't know how to give in the relationship. And so they end up in these dynamics where they're trying to receive, but they're not giving enough in return. And then people end up ghosting them or leaving their lives because they're not getting anything in return. And so this is where ownership's important too. Who depends on you and how are you showing up? We all need to show up for others in order to be in reciprocal relationships, right? And I know, oh my gosh, in my 20s, I would just show up and I would like trauma dump on everybody. And, every conversation was an opportunity for me to share the awful things that I had been through and how life had gotten me down. That did not lead to lasting healthy relationships. Surprise, surprise, right? But most of us don't know because we didn't have good emotional support growing up. Perhaps we don't necessarily know how to be supportive and receive support. And so we can be really, clinging to what we can gain. No shame, no guilt here. Ownership. What patterns do we need to potentially recognize? So whether that's that you're rejecting support or you're not giving enough support, right? Where can you find balance in all of this? And again, I mentioned the web of interdependence. Imagine this huge spider's web all across the world, and each thread connects to another thread. And when one thread vibrates, the whole web feels it. Presently, in the United States, there is so much violence going on right now. And there's violence all over the world. Like, don't get me wrong. But I'm watching right now in real time the ripple effects of the things that are happening in the United States, rippling out and impacting entire counties, entire communities, entire states, the entire country. And this has a ripple effect out into the world and how the world perceives the United States and things like that. So this is, what's happening with genocide in the world. The whole web feels it one way or another when there is all this mass violence happening. So we need to remember that we can also have the opposite effect, that our joy can lift others in the web, that our upliftment can uplift others, that our inspiration can inspire others, right? Because what joys we experience also ripple out. Of course, yes, our pain is felt by those that are connected to us. And then there's the big collective pain that I just mentioned. But it's important for us to recognize that our healing creates space for others to heal. We don't have to be healing 24/7. We don't have to be constantly doing self work. But when we make space for that, we're making space for others too. And our growth ends up inspiring growth in others. So much of the work that I do is just showing up and being imperfectly Safriana and stumbling over my words and owning my shit and being real. And then people going, oh, wow, I can be that too. And then being like, yay, like, cool. My growth inspires others' growth. My healing creates space for others to heal. And, that's the root of it, is us shining our unique light so that other people know they can shine their unique light too. That is one of the gifts of this web of interdependence. And personal healing and collective healing go hand in hand. Like, I see this so much that when one person really starts to anchor into their healing, they start to really anchor into their sense of self and who they are and showing up in that, their family systems notice, right? And they might not follow along, but maybe they do. Loved ones, partners, close friends feel the inspiration and they start to go, oh, that's possible for me too. Our individual, I believe this more than anything else in the world, that our individual healing supports collective healing, that our individual journey impacts the collective. This is Aether, this is ownership. And likewise, collective healing supports your individual healing. It's this reciprocal, ever giving relationship. We cannot be free while others are oppressed. Liberation is a collective, not individual thing. So we can liberate ourselves and do everything in our power to liberate ourselves and feel good and free. But for as long as other people continue to be oppressed and not have their own liberation, we're not fully liberated. We're not fully free, because that means we're still only free and liberated at the expense of others in the collective who are not. So this is not saying don't be liberated in your own life and don't be free. It's saying the more that you liberate yourself, the more you will have capacity to assist in the liberation of others, the more you will have the resources to assist in helping others be free and to shine a spotlight on the oppressed, or to lift them up in the way that you can, or to give them the platform that you've developed, whatever it might be. But this is so important to me, that we have to, yes, own ourselves, but in that also means owning whatever privilege we have in our personal healing to assist in the collective healing. How can we use our privilege for the greatest, highest good of all? And again, when you heal from your trauma, you're not just helping yourself. I truly believe that you are breaking cycles that would impact your relationships, your children, your community, and the world well beyond. So, collective liberation, again, one of my most important topics here. Your freedom and mine are bound up together. We cannot be free until all of us are free. This type of statement has been stated so many times. I could not find like one core source of like where this originated from, but I say all the time, we rise together. And so I have that at the bottom. We rise together or not at all. This means racial justice is everyone's justice. Again, I could soapbox probably for an hour on everything in the world right now and how we're seeing this play out in real time, but racial justice is everyone's justice. If there are people that are being judged for the color of their skin, or targeted for the color of their skin, or bias applied because of the color of their skin, no one's really free, because tables could turn anytime, right? I mean, we're fighting against patriarchy and imperialism and colonialism, but who knows where we'll be in another 100 years, 1,000 years, right? The tables could flip. And how about we just not do that? How about we have justice for all and not have these, biases and judgments? That takes collective healing and liberation. LGBTQ liberation is everyone's liberation, especially when it comes to gender, right? Being liberated to dress a certain way. Women only recently, like how recently it's been, can wear pants and not just skirts to schools and things like that, right? Like, we're not that far into our collective journey when it comes to the liberation of women and femininity and all of that. Disability rights are everyone's rights. The disabled population is the population that anyone can enter at any time, right? You could be not non-disabled, you could be abled right now and get in a car accident, a tragic car accident that leads you to a forever disability. So when we don't have equal rights, justice, and opportunities for the disabled populations, we're literally not providing for our people, because everybody at some point in their life is going to see a decline in their ability, one way or another. And of course, environmental justice is everyone's survival. Not much surviving to do if there's no planet left. If we burn up all our resources and we suck up all of our non-renewables and we don't have systems in place for sustainability. So environmental justice is huge, and it is a massive part of collective liberation. I really believe we have a responsibility to the earth because she is our home. Again, we are not separate from the earth. We are the earth. We are made up of the same stuff she's made up of. Our parents could not have given birth to us if they did not have the building blocks provided by the earth to create us. So we are very much a part of her. When we harm the planet, we harm ourselves. We harm future generations. We harm all beings that share this home. And that's why our impact is so important. Where can we have a slightly better impact than maybe we're currently having? And then over time, how do we get a little better, a little better, a little better? And how do we use our money to vote for what we care about and to show that we want renewable things. We want sustainability. We want a good impact for all. We want all humans to be treated fairly and equally. When we tend the earth, we tend ourselves, we honor those who come after us, and we participate in the web of life. I want us to know that we do have a responsibility to future generations, whether you have children or not. This is the planet that the future children will inhabit, and all of the animal beings that are here. So, what's the generational impact that we have? I love the 7 generations forward and backward Indigenous thought of the ripple effect that we have. And so, thinking about what are the decisions you're making now going to look like 7 generations from now? I think most people that tune in with me, you have probably a pretty decent impact on the world around you. As with all of us, we can always improve that, right? But do you ever think about it that far in the future? How much the actions that you take now could impact the future generations of this planet? And so maybe you ask yourself things like, what world am I leaving for those who come after? Are my choices sustainable? Am I using more than my share? And what am I teaching others by how I live? So just some light questions to ponder. Right? But again, this ownership, like ownership is the one thing in my seasons framework that really radically gets us back our lives when we really own what we're doing, what we're contributing to, what we're not doing, where we're sabotaging ourselves. Things really, really shift. So, and just a final reminder, you are an ancestor to someone. So, what legacy are you creating for future generations? Let's move beyond self made success. Real success includes community that supports you, knowing you have your people, relationships that nourish you, that you know you can rely on, contributing to something that's larger than yourself, knowing that, yeah, you're leaving your own legacy, but it's not just for you. It's for the collective. It's for your community. It's for your family. It's for something larger than yourself. And real success is, I think, being a part of movements for justice, whether that is the smallest little thing. Justice can be standing up for someone in our community, it can be advocacy, it can be calling our Congress people, it can be volunteering, it can be cleaning up trash in the park. There are so much you can do because justice is justice for people, for animals, for the planet, right? For all living beings. How can you positively contribute towards justice for all? And tending the earth and each other. I think real success means that we are really able to care for ourselves and for one another. And if we all believed that way, I mean, oh my gosh, imagine if Zuckerberg and Bezos and Musk and some of these just buku bucks people, if they had the value of tending the earth and other humans with their resources, what would the world look like? So the more we do this on a smaller, on the individual level, no matter what our resources look like, if we can support relationships that nourish and community build and do our justice work in the world, we are going to turn this in the right direction. I have faith. So you don't have to build an empire alone. An empire is a very imperial word. So you don't have to build your future alone. You don't have to build your legacy alone. You get to be a part of a collective unfolding. This is the legacy of humanity right now. And let's leave a better one than it looks like we're trying to leave right now. Speaking of which, let's take some moments here to drop into meditation. And really, we're going to focus on this interconnected web. So I just invite you to be here now and just start by really feeling your individual body. So maybe noticing the top of your head, your scalp, and then gently scanning downwards through your body all the way to your toes and your fingertips to feel where you as an individual begin and end. And as you breathe, you might just notice how your lungs fill, how it is inside you that the lungs fill, feeling that expansion inside your body. And then noticing as you exhale, as you blow the air back out from your mouth or your nostrils, you are contributing that that breath back into the world. And so we'll begin to expand the awareness beyond the individual self here, out to the edges of your energy, out to the edges of your body, your bubble, however you perceive this. So just the space around you, your immediate space, 6 inches to 6 feet away from your body. And just being aware of this overlap between yourself embodied in this present moment and how your body relates to and is a part of this surrounding area, of what's around you, of this outside world. It's just breathing. We're going to be with this inside and outside relationship for a moment. As you breathe, I invite you to call love in through the breath, or compassion, or peace. Some positive focal point here of what you would like to pull into yourself and offer to the world. Love, peace, compassion, ease, joy, play, inspiration. Maybe there's one thing you want to focus on. Maybe there's more than one. I'm going to focus on love, but you can input any word you want here. So breathing in love, exhaling love. Feeling how you draw in the breath from the outside to the inside, and you exhale from the inside to the outside. Receiving love, giving love, receiving peace, giving peace, whatever energy you want to work with here. And so we'll just practice filling the space around you with this energy. Imagining you are flowing out your love, your peace, your joy, your play into the 6 inches to 6 feet away from you. Imagining filling this space with that positive energy that you both want to give and receive. And now we'll expand to your whole shelter, wherever you are right now, whether you're in your home or outside or another dwelling. Just imagining this larger area around you. So maybe 60 feet away, sending this energy, love, peace, play, joy, inspiration, whatever it might be, out into this larger area, your whole home, your whole shelter, or the area you're in. And really using the breath here as an anchor, pulling the energy into you and exhaling it out to the world around you. And then let's go broader. Let's go to the whole county you're in, or the whole state or territory. Sending love, peace, joy, play, etc. to all surrounding areas 60 to 600 miles away. And now expanding our view even larger, sending our energy out to the entirety of the country that we're in. Again, inhaling the energy into ourselves, receiving it for us. Exhaling, offering it to the country and then to the continent that we're on. Inhaling this energy and then expanding it to the entire hemisphere that you're on. Inhaling your love, peace, play, inspiration, joy, etc. And then exhaling it to the whole world, to the whole planet, to every living being here. The plants, the animals, the people. But we're not done yet. Zooming out even further, pulling that energy into ourselves and exhaling love to the whole solar system, to the whole galaxy, to the ever expanding universe. And then focusing here for a moment, breathing in just for yourself, feeling you, the individual, the part of this grand cosmos. Breathing in love, peace, joy, play, inspiration for yourself. And then slowly pulling yourself all the way back in, like a camera zooming all the way out from the universe, down through the solar system, past the moon, towards the earth, through the atmosphere, down towards your hemisphere of the planet, towards your continent, towards your country, and then towards your region that you live in, your neighborhood, your home, yourself. You are part of an interconnected whole, and you can offer your love, your peace, your joy, your play outward, rippling your impact through your energy, through your emotions, through the way that you acknowledge the interconnected whole. You have this power within you, and may you use it for the highest good for yourself and for all. And then I'll invite you here maybe to give yourself a hug and just pull that energy into yourself. Really give yourself a nice squeeze if you can, just to bring that energy that you want home. Feel it sealed in there. And if the eyes are closed, you can blink them open. We'll take a moment as we come back to do a quick no tiger twist. Just looking down, behind, up and around, all the way over to the other side. Just to bring our nervous system back to center. Right here, right now, we are safe and nothing bad is happening. Oh, and how important that is to anchor into. So, to wrap up today, my friends, for our first Aether, I have an invitation. These are always invitations. You do not have to do this, but I invite you to create a visual map of your interdependence. So, your center circle would be you. This would be like a radial map. The inner ring around your inner circle are the people and beings that you interact with on a daily basis. The next one out might be those who are impacting your life on a larger scale. These might be your teachers, people who grow your food, who make your products, coworkers, People that you interact with maybe on more of a weekly basis, monthly basis, etc. And then the outer ring, the larger systems and the earth herself. Of course, these are going to be less interactions, or systems you only tune into once in a while. But what is your ring of interdependence? What is your web? Where are you interconnected? Right? There's so much connection to the people who make our lives possible, seen and unseen. Right? You probably don't see the people who grow your food or package your products, or in many cases make them. But can you acknowledge them? Can you send them gratitude and love, even if you never know their name or where they are at, right? These are the little things I think that just bring us home to humanity, is acknowledging the people we may never know that have impacted our lives, and maybe we've impacted theirs. So that wraps up episode 19. Episode 20 is about embracing your whole self, creating, really an environment of radical self acceptance, making sure that there's safety for all parts of you, body sovereignty, shame recovery, parts work. We've talked about a lot of these things before as well, but now we're really bringing it together in how this impacts and how we take ownership of these parts that maybe we don't want to take ownership for. But self ownership transforms our relationships. It makes it possible for us to be really deeply interdependent and connected. And we'll talk about the connection between self acceptance and boundaries. And so we're sort of in this we belong to all of me belongs, right? We belong as a part of this planet, as a part of this larger whole. But now we have to really believe that we belong, all parts of us belong. So our journey into ownership will continue, and that will be owning ourselves and accepting ourselves fully as we are. So I hope this was useful for you, that you got something out of this. Again, like, we all have these very interesting fine line balances between how we are ourselves and how we connect in community. And the more that we can take ownership for our part, our role, and how we relate, the more we'll really find our people that we can be interdependent with, and we can be connected with, and we can have lasting, healthy relationships with. So, ownership is key. It can be really scary. I totally get it. But I hope that the more we all take ownership, the better we will make the world for all. So I love y'all so much. I see you. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on. Thanks for joining me for another episode of The Elements of Success. Thanks to the Passionistas. And I will see you back here in another 2 weeks. Bye for now.